Hi, Lisa. Are you okay?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you for asking. I'm not bad at all. And thank you for agreeing to do this podcast. I know, like everyone that I do podcasts with, how busy you are, and definitely how busy your schedule is as well. But I do feel like after our first conversation, so many people are going to find value in what you have to say in different areas as well. I think we had a really, I felt like a deep conversation. And I do feel
Mhm.
like so many people will benefit from hearing that. But if we can just have a short synopsis, if that's okay, for people that don't know yourself, I guess, and just kind of like your work history and what you've done to date, and then
Mhm.
we can jump into it. Is that all right?
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for
Thank
your
you.
kind words. That's so nice. My name's Lisa Thorpe. I am from Australia. I've been in education for 20 years. I started off teaching in Australia, then I moved to London, and then I felt like I couldn't move back to Australia and wanted to see more of the world, and ended up in Dubai in the UAE. And I soon moved into leadership and then middle leadership, then senior leadership. And along the journey, I've had various different roles from working across a company of 11 schools as head of teaching and learning to being head of early years, head of primary, head of secondary, and learning a lot about positive education and well-being through my work, as well as accreditation and inspection. So I kind of wear both hats when you look at education. I'm the very strategic side in relation to the action plans and the accreditations inspection side, all the paperwork, the curriculum. But I also, my values really speak to well-being in education and positive education and looking after staff, empowering them. I do a lot of work with the NPQs on middle leadership training and assessing. And so for me, it's all about head and heart leadership because I really try and focus on the balance of the two, to try and make my job as meaningful and impactful as it can be.
Okay, great stuff. Um, and I guess what's also really interesting is everybody's story. Everyone's got a different, unique story. So if I kind of start off with a few questions, and I guess which helps. What inspired you to become a teacher? Was there any early motivations, or I guess later motivations, depending on when you decided to become a teacher? And how has that kind of your direction guided since then?
Oh, that's a big question, actually. Um, so I grew up in Australia, in the state of Victoria in Melbourne, and I grew up in an area called Broadmeadows, which was don't know whatever way you want to look at it, a lower socioeconomic area of the state, and back then and still now had a bad name. And there's a few points in my childhood that I really remember, that stuck out to me for me wanting to be a teacher. I actually remember, like, I can picture this so vividly, and I actually can't remember much of my childhood, to be honest. I don't know why. But I can picture this vividly, that I was standing on the steps of like the primary school that I went to with my friend Haley, and we were talking about our dreams. We were 9 years old, and we said, we're going to be teachers and we're going to have a house and we're going to make people believe in education and we're going to have a big TV. And so they were our goals.
Yeah,
And
and a big
then
TV.
and the big TV. Um and when I went through school and went into high school, I soon realized that the community that I was growing up in and living in, um didn't really see education the way that I maybe did because of generational and situational poverty that they were in. I was one of the only students who had a pencil case, one of the
No
only
one.
students who ever did homework, little
Oh,
things like that. And I
yeah.
saw a lot of people drop out um, over the years. And then I also had a lot of friends also who had expectations that by a certain age that they had to leave school either to work or to go back to their home country and get married at say 16 or 17. And so I just felt that there was more that I could do for the world if people understood that education could help. And so I started learning about generational and situational poverty, and yeah, decided to go and do my bachelor's degree to become a teacher. And then my aim was to go back and work in the same community where I grew up and try to make a difference to the community that I grew up in and show them that education can be valued. So just to give context to my situation, I started high school with maybe 120
Okay.
people in my grade level. By the time I got to grade 12, there was 20 of us left, and only 2 of us left high school and went on to further education. So, yeah.
Sorry, just to put that into context, are we talking about year 12
Yeah.
and there was 20 left
Yeah.
out of 100 and something?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
is that the compulsory age range in Australia or?
I don't know, 20 years ago, if
Yeah.
there was. I think it might have been 16.
Okay.
Um, I don't know about
Um,
now. Most
yeah,
people
yeah,
stayed until they were 16. And
yeah,
then by the time they got to like 11 and 12, they'd left. So yeah, only 2 of us went on to further education initially. A couple of
yeah.
people have gone on since. But yeah, the other person who went on to further education, he now works in Boston in America as an architect, and I'm in Dubai as a school
Okay.
leader. So interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. What the results it brings. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Oh my.
yeah, so I decided I wanted to go back to the place where I grew up and make a difference. And my first ever grade level, I had grade 3 students who I still keep in touch with, a lot of them, so many years on. And they they were a very mixed bunch. I had, a student who would do a runner and climb the fence and run out of school, and I had a girl who was in the top 5% of the country in the standardized assessment. And they all had different backgrounds, single parents, maybe parents in jail,
Yeah.
parents with issues with drugs. One of them, it was planned that by 16 she would leave the country and going to go back to their home country to get married. As a Muslim, that was the expectation. And I just worked as hard as I could to show value to their whole family, to their whole community, of what education can bring. And one of the most rewarding parts of my whole ever life was when a bunch of these students sent me a message on Facebook with a photo of like 8 of them at their grade 12 graduation, and I taught them in grade 3, and they said, "We
Oh.
just want to show you that we did it."
And that's nice because they're attributing their success, a part of their success anyway, because as all teachers do, you kind of pass the baton on, don't you, as they,
Yeah,
as they get older. But it just shows how important every age group is and
yeah,
every teacher in that. And, as adults, those people that make a difference in our lives, and you definitely must have done. They remember,
yeah,
that catalyst for change, and that must have been. How did that feel? To receive that. Oh, was it? Because for me, I don't know. I'll be thinking, oh my god, you remember me? I taught you all these years ago, and you've just what? So,
yeah.
wow. So yeah,
For me, that's the first thing, like, why would you remember me out of every teacher you've had? Like, what? What? And I
yeah.
still question that because, like, I have there's somebody who works here in Dubai who works with my husband, and I taught her son, who was the last class I actually taught in grade 3 about 9 years ago. And
Okay.
he's just finished as well. And every time she sees my husband, she's always like, "Oh, my son still talks about her and he's even in uni." And I'm like, "Why? Like, what? I don't get it." And so when people say that to me, I think it's just a lie. Like, what? Are you just saying that to be nice to my face because you're seeing me? But I don't know, maybe, I have been told that, like, as a leader, I've been told I'm
Mm.
a leader with a heart. And I'm
Mhm.
somebody who has high expectations and pushes people, but I do it with compassion and empathy and care, and I listen,
Mhm.
and I'm genuine in that.
Mhm,
And so that didn't just come from, out of nowhere. That came from how
mhm.
I was as a teacher and how I showed up. And, back in the day when I taught in Australia, it was a bit different to how it is now. Like, we got away with things that definitely wouldn't get away with now. But, we had high expectations and would tell the, children what their expectations were. And,
Yeah,
you know, but I loved them and cared for them, even the one who would do runners. Like, I cared for him so much. I'm still in touch with his mum, 20 years later. So I think for whatever reason, they remember me because of the two things of having the expectations, pushing them and wanting the best for them, but doing it in a caring and supportive way that made them feel seen and heard. And I think that's what all human beings deserve and need. And if you can do that, then you actually make an impact on a lasting impact on someone without even knowing it, without even doing it intentionally, just by showing up as how you feel is your authentic you.
now that's amazing, by the way, listening to someone speak so passionate like that. Now, if you don't mind me saying this, I've been waiting to speak to someone like yourself to see what your response is, but I've been speaking to a few people that have kind of lived by your ethos and very similar values, if not exactly the same. Now, you all say the same thing, which I think is crazy. How it's kind of like, well, it's just what I do. And it's just like, I'm surprised, not, I'm happy that these results are bringing the children to remember me. But, it's just it's my mantra. Maybe you've learnt it along the way, you've added to it, and you've focused in on it because you know it's worked. But do you think that, well, from my opinion, I want to know your opinion is what I'm trying to get at, is it more of a fact that treating people how you're treating people is so uncommon on a day-to-day basis, and so many people feel unseen in such a busy world surrounded by people, that when people do see them it makes such a big impact on them, but to those people they're just doing that on a day-to-day basis, but to the people you're impacting it's like, wow, I'm being seen, I'm being heard, I'm being thought of, I'm being listened to. Do you know what I mean? Or I'm also being challenged as well. It's not just about, letting someone have what they want. That's really boiling it down or whatever. But, someone's taken the time to build a relationship and a rapport with me and stuff. And again, I feel like maybe a lot of children are getting even more disconnected through social media, less interaction socially and stuff like that. So when they have a figure like yourself make such an impact on them, it it hits them emotionally. It makes a social imprint, an emotional imprint on them that, they'll carry it through, into their adult lives and they'll never forget. And I guess they've achieved something and they want to let you know because they're proud,
Mm.
and I guess it's to say, look, I did it. You said I could and I did. And I don't know. What's your thoughts on that? It's just when people like yourself explain it like you explain it, to me, it feels like magic what you guys do as teachers and stuff like that. But you're also humble. But yeah, it's just the concept of if that was more broadly done in wider society, I think it would be more positive and more. I don't know. Do you know what I mean? What I'm trying to say in that sense, it feels like you guys just do it you feel like natural to do it, but actually it doesn't happen. People live busy lives and people aren't always as thoughtful as they should be and as intentionally. We mentioned intentionally before, but we've gone off your story, but that's fine. But yeah, I just wanted to get your thoughts on that and, your concept.
I think you're right by what you're saying that people get so busy in their day-to-day life that it doesn't happen naturally, and that a lot of people don't feel seen or heard or whatever. So when someone does do it, it does seem unusual, or it does stand out, or they remember it more because it's not a common thing that happens. And I didn't realize that until probably just recently, when I've had more and more people share with me the impact that I've had on them by things that I've said or the way that I made them feel or how I listened. And I was like, but why was that any different to anyone else? Like, that's literally what we should be doing as human beings. Like, I
Mhm.
don't feel like I'm acting differently. I don't go out of my way to act differently. I just I just feel it's important to acknowledge people, to yeah, just to see people, and that's everyone, right? You know, like let's say working in a school. So you work in a school and there's everyone there, from like security to cleaners to the learning assistants to the students to the parents. In Dubai, there's a lot of nannies and drivers, you know, the finance people, blah blah blah. You can go on for days. And in the school I'm currently working in, we have a very, very big primary school. So we have a staff of 230 teachers just in primary. Yeah.
That's a
So,
lot.
yeah, it's massive. And so, it would be very easy to walk around the school and not greet people and not know people's names. And there are some people's names that I don't know. Like, I have to be fair. They're like, especially the learning assistants or the cleaners or the security guards. I don't know everyone's name because there's
Mhm.
with everyone, there's over 300 or something. But, I do greet them, and I do make a point to, you know, have some kind of conversation or connection with them, or whatever it is. But ultimately, I think that's what you should just do as a human being.
Mhm.
And I don't know, maybe I didn't have this or I did have this growing up. I can't remember, but I've
Yeah.
always just been somebody who acknowledges everyone. I did work in customer service from a very young age.
Mhm.
I started working at 14 in a supermarket on the front desk
No way.
supermarket. So I had to greet the customers. If anyone had a concern or a problem, I was like the person there. And so maybe I learnt those skills then, to listen and to see people and hear people. I'm not sure. But I forgot I was going to say something, but I've lost it. But anyway,
No, that's fine.
oh yes, so part of my story is when I was working at Talim Central Office, this company where they had 11 schools, and I was head of teaching and learning. The World Government Summit was in place, and it was in Dubai. And my CEO went, and there was people from all over the world presenting, like Martin Seligman, the founder of Positive Education, was there, and the people from the Positive Institute Education Institute in Geelong Grammar were there. There was lots of different speakers, and my CEO went. She came back and she's like, "Look, I don't know what this is. Get ahead of it. Find out. Go do research." And I literally got sent all over the world for like 2 years, and to research like positive education and well-being practices in schools. And I went and visited schools and saw what they did on a day-to-day basis, and you know, all this kind of stuff. And I learned so much. But I came back like I was, you know, going in and out. And the work that I was doing in schools, over the 11 schools that I worked at, was all student based. What programs can we do to impact the students? What surveys can we do to gather data? Blah, blah, blah. And it was great, and I loved it, and it really inspired me, and it actually changed the culture of the company. We ended up having like a massive amount of people trained through the Positive Education Institute. It was incredible. Like, yeah, it was really good. But then I just stopped and went, but none of this matters unless it's coming from the top, unless it's for the adults, unless it's for the teachers, unless it's for the leaders. So I need to change what we're doing here. And so then that kind of started my journey of, you need to see people, you need to hear people even more than what you do. And
Mhm.
I think I always had that personality, obviously from when I was teaching, and from when I was younger. I always had this personality where I had high expectations, really pushed everyone who I was working with, students or staff, but I cared for them. And then backing that with the positive psychology and the
Yeah.
well-being training that I did, and then the different conferences I attended, the more and more I listened to, the more and more I just became so focused on staff. And everything was about that. And so when, you know, whatever team I'm working in is not working so well, I will stop and do like, the next PD will be like a well-being activity, or a team building activity, but not like a cringy one, because there can be really cringy ones.
Yeah.
But ones that build connections and that
Yeah.
show people that there's similarities and differences, and that we're all human. And I think the biggest mistake in any job that we have, in society, is that
Mhm.
people try and show up in a way that's not really authentically them. They try
Yep.
and show up that, well, I'm a leader or I'm this and I can't make mistakes and I'm perfect and,
Mhm.
my way is the highway or whatever, all those things that people have. And people show up in that way in many different ways, like how they present themselves on social media,
Mhm.
um, the things that they have, the house they live in, they whatever. There's always like, a persona that people have. But ultimately, we're all people. We all
Mhm.
have a story. Everyone has problems, everyone has dreams and hopes and challenges, but we all have like amazing qualities about ourselves, and
Yeah.
it's very rare for people to share that and to make connections based on that. So my go-to activity is this activity where they go through a rite of passage activity and share those four elements in a very sequenced way that I run this activity that I had at actually experienced myself at a conference in Australia like in 2017. Um and the connections it builds with people is phenomenal. And for me, it's giving space for people to listen and hear each other and make connections and find similarities, and then realize that you're living and working with a whole bunch of human beings who are just
Yeah.
human at the end of the day. And if having more knowledge of someone opens your eyes and makes you stop when you're so busy running down the corridor and go, oh, hey, I remember they had something in common with me, or they were struggling with something. Why don't I check in on them? Like,
Yeah.
doesn't that make the world a better place? Um,
Yeah.
I don't know if I answered the question, but for me, it's just people are people, and we just need to open our eyes to what is around us and realize that there's people in front of us, human beings, not
Mhm.
just a role or not just a position or a title or you need this job done. And so you're the person who's going to go do that job, or a race or a religion. And
Mhm.
actually having connections with people, learning about them, it just opens the world up in so many different ways. And I think that's why people see that I'm different, because I do speak in that way. I do live in that way, and I do try and lead in that way. And it's not for everyone. Can tell
No.
you that right now, but it's what I believe in, because I believe everyone's a human and everyone has the right to be seen and heard and valued and had a conversation with. And
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know if I answered the question. Totally rambled, but there you go.
No, it's fine. It's fine. We go off piste all the time, and we just ride it out. It's fine. It's great. So, um, if we could, we'll break it down a little bit then, because if can we go back to your story, then jump back to this? Would that be okay? Is that all right? Just to
Hmm.
control it a little bit, because we're in Australia at the minute, and someone's trying to call me again. Sorry if this happens a lot. Can you see me still?
Yeah.
That's okay then. So if that happens, just ignore that because people are calling me. Um, so we're in Australia. You've gone back to the community to work, and it feels like you did a cultural change there. You're empowering people to find the value in education. So did you? So was that a big thing you learnt growing up? Again, like you said earlier, you're naturally thinking education's for me, and so many people are dropping off. So, did you? Was it interagency? Was it your class personally? Did you give yourself any projects or anything? What was your biggest mission that you were on to achieve? Oh my God! There's the start. There's the fireworks. And for others listening, how did you achieve that? Because there's other people in lots of different communities around the world, that come from communities that many people don't go on to university. It's not just about university, but stay in school, go into college, do an apprenticeship, etc., and so forth. So, I guess you took on a big mission. So, I guess how did you break it down? How did you attack it? Did you just focus on your class, or was it with other teachers, or was it with the local government, or again, yeah, how did you go about it?
Okay. So
A lot of
initially,
questions, I know.
the first step was I worked with my class, because I went straight out of university into back into the same school, or the same area, sorry, not the same school, where I grew up. And I had this class of 28 kids, and so my task was them, right? And I think, like, first year out of uni, who was gonna listen to you? But they did, but anyway. Um, so the first thing I had to do was just, like, listen to the parents and learn the stories and get to know the parents, and, like, every school has parent-teacher conferences. Most of these parents also didn't work, so they would often be a pick up and drop off, and so just being present and having chats with them and learning about them and learning about their situations, over time, I, started to influence them, um through thinking of education in a different way once I understood their story. But, I think her name is Ruby Payne. I did do training into understanding the framework of poverty, and poverty, that was a big thing. Understanding that, because poverty is not just money. Like, there's multiple layers
Okay.
of, poverty, and it could be not having, role models around you, or having physical health, or, having a roof over your head, having, um the love and support to drive you in a certain way. There's many things, and it's not just money. And most people see poverty as money. But if you looked at the situation that I was in and where I grew up, the students that I had were deficits in many of the areas, and a lot of that was generational rather than situational, because generation on generation had lived in the same area, in the housing commission area, and it's also a fear thing. They didn't know any different. Like, if somebody became successful in school and went to uni, they might leave that community and they might leave their family, and then what's their family going to do now? And so it was a lot of education for myself, understanding it. And part of that training was also how to speak to people. And this was really important. And I learned that there was too many people came into my school who didn't know this. So because I grew up in the same area, I knew how to speak to people because they were just like my people, right? You know, we had a teacher start maybe the second or third year I was at the school, and she came in and she was from a middle upper class area, down the road, like only 15 minutes down the road, but it was very different. And, when a parent walks in and they're angry about something and they're like, where is that effing bee? I want her. I'm going to smash her face in. What does that teacher do? Well, one, she either runs away screaming, crying, or two, she tries to be, excuse me, call me my name or whatever. Like, either way, they're not going to work, right?
Yeah.
And so there was a lot of people who came in and were talking the middle class talk, and then so the parents were like, "Who do you think you are? You think you're better than me?" Like, all that kind of stuff. And I didn't understand that there was even a different language,
Yeah.
but there is. And so I really learned how to, be at the level of the parents I was speaking to when I needed to, and
Mhm.
connecting with them, and not making anyone ever feel that I was superior, or making them feel inferior. Like, it was about, we're a partnership here. And
Yeah.
like, my very first year of teaching, I had this kid who, his dad was in jail, the mum had some issues, and we had our end of school concert, and it's a big deal. It was like the biggest deal of the school year, and I got notice on the day that he wouldn't be there, and I was like, in my own selfish mind, I was like, no, I've done the choreography. He needs to be there. And then I was like, actually, it's bigger than the choreography. He needs to be there for him.
Yeah.
And I was like, why can't he come? And they're like, they don't have a car. And I said, okay. So I drove around there, a plastic bag from the supermarket with his whole costume in it, had to sit down with the mum and convinced her that we'll get him there and we'll drop him off and everything. And he came, and made his week, his day, everything. And I just think sometimes you need to do those things and
Yeah.
understand why, and see what is the bigger situation. And that mum cried when I came to her door. And,
Yeah.
I could tell lots of stories from my first few years, but Yeah, so I think the first thing I did was working with the initial students that I had in my class. I was a newbie teacher. I was like thrown in with 28 kids. You know, the kid who did the runner and climbed the front fence, and the one who was top 5% of the country. And I was like, what the hell have I got myself into? But over the next 3 years, I started believing in literacy as the foundation for growth in the world,
Okay.
because I realized a lot of people I went to school with and that I grew up with didn't know how to read, and so were in high school with me and couldn't read, and then they would drop out, and so that was part of the reason why they were dropping out. So I really went on this big focus and became like the literacy coordinator in my school in like my second year of teaching,
No way.
to really focus on how to support language development for children. And that has been something that has like followed me through my career, in every aspect of my career, because yeah, if you can read and write, basic skills that we think everyone knows how to do,
Yeah.
which not everyone does, you know, that opens up a platform for you that not everyone has, you know, depending on where you grew up in the
Yeah.
world, has the access to. So that's where I started. Did I work into agencies? No. We look, we probably had child protection cases at our
Yeah.
whatever back then, but we didn't have agencies that supported that, like
Okay.
today. But it was just me trying to support them as much as I could. Yeah.
And the difference is that the difference your aim was it to well, did you find it was boys or girls mainly that were dropping out, or was it all? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Was it
all it
just
was both, yeah.
wow,
For
so it
different
wasn't just
reasons,
yeah,
like totally different reasons. When I went to school, it was the boys were dropping out because they were getting into drugs quite early,
yeah.
14, 15. Girls were getting pregnant.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, fair enough. And then you moved to London.
Yeah.
And did London do that thing it does to everybody? And it's just like, oh my God, this is a mega metropolis
Yeah.
and it's crazy and it's busy and it's loud. What did you learn from the difference in teaching in London and I guess the different ways they teach? Was it much different? And how has that kind of affected you for the future?
Yeah, so initially in London, I was working as a supply teacher, and
Okay.
pretty much that was like crowd control. And I worked all over London, and I saw things that I'd never experienced in my life,
Yeah.
because it was just so different in many different ways. Like each borough was different with the cohort of students and the staff, and I saw a lot of sadness as well. I saw a lot of poverty in different ways as well. Um, but I also met and engaged with many different nationalities and learnt more about different religions, nationalities, cultures, and people invited me to their countries, like, you know, staff that
No
I
way.
work with in different schools and people I
Yeah.
met. And soon I started traveling around Europe, and I think I did 30 countries in 2 years that I was there.
Oh
Um,
my God.
and it just opened me up to, you know, th- there's such a big world out there. It's so
Yeah.
much bigger than just where I've grown up, and there's so many different ways of being and living and doing, and you know, how can we, you know, everyone have different opportunities. And again, I also worked a lot with EAL because there was a lot of students who had no English, or very limited English. So, oh, I struggled. I just remembered I had a full-time job in London, um, teaching year one, which is probably the youngest I've ever taught. Like I've led early years, but I didn't teach early years. And I get into trouble because I had kids from everywhere, and some of them had zero English, and some of them were native speakers, and some of them would yell out at the principal in assembly to sit down, B, and all those kind of things. Like I had everything. I had such a crazy class. And me being me and from Australia and seeing everyone as an individual and catering for their
Yeah.
needs, I would teach them according to them. And, oh, did I get into trouble because I wasn't doing autumn 1, week 1, phase 2, week 2 of the phonics program. And, and like, I was like, come on, guys, like, this is 15 years ago. Come on, guys, these kids are different. They don't all have the same need. They're not all on the same
Yeah.
level. Nope. You need to teach this way. And that was a real struggle for me in England or in London, because the kids were definitely not the same, and they definitely needed individuality and the care and the support. And yeah, that was a struggle
Wow.
for me. And it actually gave me a bad taste of like British curriculum. So much so when I moved to Dubai, I was like, I don't ever want to work in the British curriculum. And I still see some people who do teach whole class, but maybe, I don't know, just the times hadn't caught up to my mentality yet.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, it could have been the school you were in. It could be multiple things, couldn't
Yeah.
it? I guess you were already identifying how hard it is to teach such a large class, and everyone's so different. But you've got this one set curriculum to teach, and I guess there's not much you can do, particularly until you get into positions of power, in order to enact change in a way you see fit with a team around you and stuff, and that can
Yeah.
take years of dedication to wait patiently like you have,
Yeah.
in that sense. But you have. So talk to me about you're in Dubai, aren't you? Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. Talk to me about Dubai. How different was that compared to Australia, to London? Would you recommend, I know the answer, but other people to come to Dubai to work, and, what's your experience been so far? That's a big question. That's 6 big questions there, but there you go.